I saw another strong angel coming down from heaven. Now 10 and 11 is the second interlude. Okay, 10 and 11 till 10 to 11 verse 14 is the second gap, second break, or second interlude. The first one was chapter 7, 1,44,000. Yes. I saw another strong angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and okay, now as we read this, carefully observe the description of the angel. Okay, I saw another strong angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. First one, clothed with a cloud. Where do you see someone coming in the cloud?
In Daniel chapter 2.
7. Yes, the Son of Man. Okay, so don't make any conclusion that this angel is the Son of Man. No, we're not making that. But there are similarities. Okay, and the rainbow was on his head, and his face was like the sun. Now that is also another description about God. And his feet like pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little scroll which was open. Now, in Revelation 4 and 5, it's the book. Now this is a little scroll. So that's a big difference. Okay. He placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. What does that mean? He's covering the whole creation. So he's going to say something very important. So he claims the heaven and earth for himself, and he's going to make a proclamation. And as he cried out with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. Now, his voice is like the lion. It's very quick to think, okay, he must be Jesus, because Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Yes, Lion of Judah. And when he had cried out, the 7 peals of thunder uttered their voice. When the 7 peals of thunder had spoken, so just to make that clear, this angel is not Jesus. Even though some of these descriptions sounds like that of Jesus, this is not Jesus. The Jesus is not mentioned here. Jesus is the Son of Man, mentioned as Son of Man. He is a slain lamb. But angels can have such description because we saw that angels are also created angelic, heavenly beings, and they are powerful and mighty. So all of this description is showing that this angel is mighty and he is sent by God. He is God's servant. Now, the little scroll is not the same as the book, the seal, the seal for all the 7 seals that Jesus broke, the slain lamb broke. Okay. When the 7 peals of thunder had spoken, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up the things which the 7 peals of thunder have spoken, and do not write them. Do you remember this anywhere else? In Daniel was also asked to store up the visions he saw until the end. Then the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever. See, that's the difference here. This angel is not God, because he is raising his right hand towards heaven and the one who is in heaven. Who is in heaven? God the Father. Jesus has already ascended. He is not on the earth. This is happening post Jesus ascension. And who created heaven and the things in it? So he is swearing by him. Now who is this him? He is the one who lives forever and ever, so he is eternal. He created the heavens and the heaven and the things in it, and the earth and the things in it, and the sea and the things in it, that there will no longer be a delay. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, then the mystery of God is finished, as he announced to his servants and the prophets. So all of this is anticipating the 7th trumpet, the 7th angel. When the 7th angel is going to speak, history is coming to an end. The world is coming to an end. Then the voice which I heard from heaven, I heard again speaking with me and saying, Go take the scroll which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the land. So, the voice I heard from heaven. That's another difference. So, this angel is seeing another person up in heaven. He is eternal. He created the heavens and the earth. Angel is not the one who created. Second, this angel is there, but a voice is coming to John. Take the little scroll from the hand of the angel. And I went to the angel telling him to give me the little scroll in verse 9. And he said to me, Take it and eat it. It will make your stomach bitter. But in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. Do you remember any prophet in the book who was asked to eat? No, eat a book. Ezekiel chapter 2. So this incident is patterning on that incident in Ezekiel 2. So that incident was very important for the commissioning of Ezekiel for the ministry. God is telling him, take this book, eat it. So same thing is happening to John. You have to eat this book. Now, this book will taste sweet in your mouth, but when it reaches your stomach, it will be bitter. Why is that? I took the little scroll from the angel's hand and ate it, and in my mouth it was sweet as honey. And when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And they said to me, You must prophesy again concerning many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. So that the next few chapters is these prophecies that we're going to see. Now, why was it bitter? What is the content of the prophecies? The visions? Judgment. Judgment. That's why it's bitter. Because what John is going to prophesy now is not good stuff. It is what? Judgment on the wickedness of this world. Judgment on those who have the seal of the Satan. And so hence it's bitter. It tastes good in your mouth, but it's bitter. And it contains all the prophecies concerning many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. See, nations, you go a little bit more, Babylon's destruction is being mentioned. Kings, you will see many references to kings being, you already saw kings, right? In the last chapter, the sixth seal, what was it? When the sky was divided, when the stars were falling, when the moon was turned into blood, the merchants, the wealthy people, and the kings were crying out. What did they say? Come and fall on us when that earthquake happened. So destruction of kings. Does it connect to Daniel? What was the whole point of Daniel we saw? One of the major points. The sovereignty of the Lord. The Lord is sovereign over all history. No matter what kind of king came, no matter what kind of nation came, no matter how mighty they were, no matter how much they invaded and conquered, everything, including that little horn, that arrogant king who came up after the Romans, even that was destroyed, annihilated. That's the word NASB uses. So very much connected. Any questions from chapter 10? Yes. The rest, the next chapters. So see, in this book, at different points, different people are coming and giving a proclamation. In the beginning, we saw in chapter 1, the Son of Man, he comes and he talks. 7 churches. And then you see another angel comes up. and tells, seals, all the seal. Then we see now, the last chapter, we saw another angel standing up. Now we see here another strong angel. So the book of Revelation is about different proclamations that are being made. And once a proclamation is made, then a lot of things are going to happen. All these prophecies are about things that are happening and will going to be happen. Yeah. The Ezekiel passage is in Ezekiel 3 verse 1 to 3 and verse 10. You can write it down, that Ezekiel ate a scroll. Ezekiel 3 verse 1 to 3 and verse 10. 3 verse 1 to 3 and verse 10. So yeah, many people will come to the Lord, many people will follow, but then so many people will rebel against God, so judgment will fall. So that's why the bitterness, it's a like that bitterness is a sign of what is going to happen. And see, even Daniel had a similar feeling, right? When he saw all those visions and what is going to happen, that little horn and all of that, Daniel he got weak, and then God had to strengthen him. So judgment is tough, but people don't realize it. So see, all of these chapters are comforting the persecuted church when they hear about the seal of God, seal of the Lamb, that God is sealed that great multitude, 144,000. Right? That is comforting the church. Yes, we are suffering right now, but we are sealed. We've received the seal of the Lamb. We belong to the Lamb. So we will not, even though we are being persecuted now, we will not be affected by the judgment that is going to come on these people. We are protected. When they read about this, the little scroll and what's going to happen, all these visions, the church is reading it, and the church is like, yes, yet a little more time. And in between the martyrs, the people who have been killed, the people who are suffering, God's people are asking, how long? But God is telling, wait, it is happening. It is going to happen all the more. I'm going to come. I'm going to set my kingdom. I'm going to defeat all of these people. So it's giving comfort, confidence, trust. So all of these messages, all of these visions are causing God's people to hold on to God in those times of struggles. So connect each chapter with that context. Ask the question, how does this vision encourage God's people? So that will be one of the ways I will formulate the question. Like, how does this vision comfort God's people? What is the message it is giving to the church, the persecuted church? So that's why you have to read this. You need to know what each chapter is all about. Yeah. See, in spite of all these judgments, people will still continue to rebel against God. The kings will still form alliances with evil, with Babylon. But then a greater judgment is coming. That's what is happening even now, right? The kings have all gathered together. The prime ministers have all gathered together. They are all working against God, but they're not realizing that God is on the throne. The throne room belongs to God, not to them. See that? So, yeah, the angel stance is important. One foot on the sea, one foot on the land, his right hand raised towards heaven. You know, it's all the spheres are there. Heaven is there, land is there, sea is there, which means this God has control over all of these, and God is calling all of these created order as witness, and God is telling heaven, earth, sea, look at what I'm going to do. You are my witnesses. That's one thing God keeps doing. He calls witnesses. When an oath is made, witness has to be there. When a covenant is made, witness has to be there. So this is God's way of saying, you become my witness. See what I've done and see what I'm going to do. Yeah. And this angel in chapter 10, some people see it as Jesus, but there's enough and more evidence in the whole chapter that this is not Jesus. Yes, it's a mighty angel. It's a great angel. And angels are great. They are God's heavenly servants. They are big, mighty. Michael is there, Gabriel is. We saw them in the book of Daniel. And okay, chapter 11. We still have half an hour. If possible, we'll finish 12 also and see how that goes. Chapter 11. So this is continuing. This interlude is continuing, okay? Then there was given to me a measuring rod like a staff. See, again, all are pictures. Revelation is full of pictures, okay? There's different ways. So, when you read that the angel is standing with one leg on the land, one leg on the sea, right hand raised up to the heaven, that's a picture that God is the creator of all of these things, and God is saying all of these things are mine, and I'm calling you as witness to see what I'm going to do. Now this another picture is coming up, measuring. We'll see what the meaning is. Then there was given to me a measuring rod like a staff, and someone said, get up and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it. Now so John is saying that I was given a measuring rod, and the instruction is what? Get up and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship in it. This is a picture of God's preservation. God is saying, this is mine. This is mine. The temple is mine, the altar is mine, the people in the temple are mine. Who are these people? They're God's people. Only God's people can come into the throne room, can come into the Holy of Holies, right? Right. In the Old Testament, people couldn't come in. That's where the high priest used to get in. But post Jesus, post crucifixion and resurrection, the curtain has been divided, and God's people have the access through the curtain, not just to the outer court, not just to the holies, even to the Holy of Holies, the throne room of God. So God is saying, go measure it up. This is mine. I'm going to preserve it. This is mine. Now, verse 2. Leave out the courtyard. Leave out the courtyard which is outside the temple, and do not measure it. So something has to be measured. Something should not be measured. The outer court, no. Because it has to be given to the nations, and they will trample the holy city for 42 months. Okay? And I will grant authority to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days. You remember 1,260? Anywhere saw it before? Daniel, the last chapters, 9 or 10. That's the second part of the 3.5 years. 3.5 years, 7 years, right? 3.5, 3.5. Okay? Now, and they will prophesy for one. So God is sending 2 witnesses, with authority, and they will prophesy for 1260 days. Again, helpful not to take it literally. It's again a picture of a long time, 1260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. Now this is coming from the book of Zechariah. Okay, so first 42 months is equivalent to 1260 days. Okay, so we saw a time and half a time. The end, the second half of that year, 3.5 years. Okay, and so the premillennialists, the dispensation people, look at this 7 years as the Great Tribulation period, which will come. And this is the second half of the Great Tribulation. But the already not yet inaugurated eschatology, which I am trying to explain, looks at it as the time from the ascension of Christ to the glorious second coming of Christ. So it's a whole period. It's a long period. Okay. So yes, and then the two witnesses we see it from Zechariah chapter 4. When you go and read, you should just write it down. Zechariah chapter 4 verse 11 and 14 and even 6 to 10. Okay, 6 to 10, 11 verse 11 and 14 of chapter 4. So when you read Zechariah 4, you see two olives over there. Two olives, okay? And if you'll continue over here, these are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of the earth. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire flows out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And so if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. These have the power to shut up the sky so that rain will not fall during the days of their prophecy, and they have power over the waters to turn them into blood and to strike the earth with every plague as often as they desire. So firstly, two olive trees and two lampstands. Okay, these are imageries that are coming from Zechariah. Okay, and these two olive trees and these two anointed, it is symbolizing anointed ones. Okay, it is showing a royal leader. In Zechariah chapter 4 verse 6 to 10, we see a royal leader who will rebuild God's temple. And then Zechariah 3 verse 1 to 5, we'll see a priest who leads worship for God's people. So those two olive trees, the two olive trees in Zechariah are symbolizing two people. One a priest and one a royal leader. So we see that Revelation 11 verse 3, those two witnesses most appropriately is representing these two kinds of people, priest and king. Now you look at how Jesus has redeemed God's people. When you look back to Genesis, God has created us as a kingdom of priests and kings. That's the two offices that's given to mankind, right? In Genesis 1, we've been created as his kings to rule on his behalf. We are created as priests to do what? To be cleansed by God and to lead other people to God. Two things. But then we see sin has marred it. Sin has completely destroyed that image. But then in Christ Jesus, he restores it. He redeems it. And he makes his children, whoever repents of their sins and puts their faith in Jesus, he makes them what? Kings and priests. So that in 1 Peter, what does Peter say? For you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Yes. Kings and priests. Royal priesthood. Kings and priests. So, according to inaugurated eschatology, these two witnesses are comprising of the church. According to dispensationalists, they say that these two are witnesses who will come to evangelize the world during the Great Tribulation period. Now some are saying Enoch, Enoch and Elijah. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Some are saying that, but Enoch and Elijah, when you look at the whole book of Revelation, and nowhere else there are any other verses that say that Enoch and Elijah are going to come later. There's no verses that mention like that. So that could be a speculation that we can make. That's something that we can say it could be Enoch and Elijah. But more importantly, when we look at the whole book of Revelation, why Revelation was written and to whom it was written, and when we look at that inaugurated eschatology, that point of view, we see, just like we saw that the 144,000 and the great multitude is a church of God, people who are sealed, redeemed from the earth. When we take that thought, we can see that the chapter 11, this is talking about the church being sent as God's evangelists. That's exactly what the church's role is today. We are sent as what? We are made kings and priests to do what? To do the functions of God, to tell people, to rule over, and to tell people that, hey, there's a greater king, come under his rule. We are cleansed to be his priests, to bring people to the throne room of God, evangelism. So, with that thought, what do we see over here? And if anyone wants to harm them, fire flows out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And so if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this way. These have the power to shut up the sky so that the rain will not fall during the days of their prophesying. And they have power over the waters to turn them into blood and to strike the earth with every plague as often as they desire. So a lot of imageries over there. Plagues and all of that, And all of these things God is sending. God is sending, God will send on this wicked world. And fire and the whole idea of verse 5 is that nobody can harm God's people. Whether it is according to inaugurated eschatology, it's a church, or according to dispensationalist understanding, it's those two witnesses who may come, nobody can destroy them. Now, we will see what happens to these two witnesses. When they have finished their testimony in verse 7, the beast that comes up out of the abyss will make war with them. So Satan comes to make war and overcome them and kill them. In verse 5 it says nobody can fight them. Nobody can harm them. But look at verse 7. What happens? The beast, Satan, comes and kills them. How can you reconcile this? Right? How can you reconcile this? It's easy to reconcile because we saw about the seal, right? The seal does not promise that we will not go through suffering. But what does the seal promise? That Satan cannot harm us. We will not be under the punishment of God because we are washed in the blood of Jesus. So here these witnesses will die. They will be killed. But who will raise them back to life? Jesus. So Satan actually cannot harm them. Just like Satan couldn't harm Jesus. When Jesus died, Satan thought, what? Done. Finished. But on the third day, Jesus woke up, and that was the defeat. That was the blow on Satan's head. That's why today Satan is a defeated person. He's a defeated person. He's been given some time to go about doing what he wants to do. What does he do? Steal, kill, and destroy. So, in the same way, we should not look at it by saying that, yeah, God's people will not go through sufferings. No, God's people will go through sufferings. But the protection that we have is that we will not be completely destroyed by Satan, and we will not come under the judgment of God. Now, and their dead bodies, verse 8, will lie on the street of the great city which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Now, where was the Lord crucified? Jerusalem. But spiritually, Jerusalem is called what? Sodom and Egypt. Both these cities are known for what? Sin. Sodom was burnt with fire because of the sinfulness. Egypt, what is Egypt? Eh? Egypt, Pharaoh. Pharaoh, God's judgment came on them. God wiped Pharaoh and his armies. And the next verse says, for also their Lord was crucified. Who is their Lord? Who is the Lord of these witnesses? Jesus. So in one way, Jerusalem is equated with two sinful cities, which means Jerusalem is also a sinful city. Because it's a sinful city, that's why Jesus was crucified. Who crucified Jesus? Did the Romans crucify or the Jewish people crucify? The Jews crucified. The people whom he came to save. His own people crucified him. That's why, there's a verse in Luke that Sodom will have more mercy, but Jerusalem will not. Because the more you have gotten the revelation, the more you have seen God's truth, the more you have experienced God, and still you don't obey, your situation will be much more worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. We see that in Luke. Now verse 9. Those from the peoples, tribes, languages and nations will look at their dead bodies for 3.5 days, and will not allow their dead bodies to be laid in a tomb. And those who live on the earth will rejoice over them and celebrate. Now, who are these people who live on the earth? Those who have the seal of Satan. Sinful people. They will rejoice over these bodies and celebrate. And they will send gifts to one another. Isn't it interesting? God's people are being killed, and these people are celebrating and sending gifts to each other. Because these two prophets tormented those who live on the earth. How did these two prophets torment? How did they torment? Did the prophets go and beat them up? Did the prophets go and put them in prison? No. The prophets were witnessing about the Lamb and about God's judgment that's coming. And they were reminding people about the judgment that's already come. So when the people were hearing this, the people of this earth were hearing the truth, they were being tormented. Isn't that true today also? Who likes to hear the truth? You speak the truth. You take the word expositionally and preach truthfully according to what the Bible says. Maybe you may not be called again to preach. But if you preach what the people wants to hear, you may be invited again and again. The people, even our church people doesn't want to hear the truth. People who speak truth are unpopular now. Who are the popular preachers? The ones who preach prosperity. Claim, name and claim. You believe in Jesus, you have faith in Jesus, you claim that car, you will get it. You believe in Jesus, you will be healed. You believe in Jesus, you will get that house. You will get this money. Send money to our business. Send money to our... Have you seen all these prosperity preachers in the TV? When they preach, one thing comes in the bottom. Bank account details. That way all of us, Elijah sir and Ruby sir and Rufus and I can make lots of money because we preach a lot. If we go to any church, okay, you have called me to preach. Church, this is our bank details. I will preach. By the time my preaching is ended, send money. You'll be blessed. See, people like to hear those kind of sermons. Okay, so the two prophets, they were tormenting those who live on the earth by witnessing about the slain lamb. And after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God came into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon those who were watching them. It's a picture of resurrection, right? From the dead being raised back to life. Before this, we see what happened to Lazarus. Then we saw what happens to Jesus. Lazarus was raised to life again to die. But Jesus was raised to life by God, never to die again. And here the witnesses are being raised to life. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." So the heaven is now calling them back. And they went up into heaven in the cloud, and their enemies watched them. And at the time there was a great earthquake, and the tenth of the city fell. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the rest were terrified, and they gave glory to the God of heaven. The second woe has passed. Behold, the third woe is coming quickly. Then the seventh angel sounded, and now this is the last trumpet. The seventh angel sounded, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever." And the 24 elders who sit on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshipped God. Anywhere else you saw this? Revelation 4, 5, right? You will see this again in Revelation 19. Same scene. Saying, "We give you thanks, Lord God, the Almighty, the one who is and who was, because you have taken your great power and have begun to reign, and the nations were enraged." See, when God is worshipped, when God is glorified, when the reality of God, the truth about God is proclaimed, what is happening? The evil, sinful nations are enraged, and your wrath came, and the time came for the dead to be judged, and the time to reward your bond servants, the prophets, and the saints, and those who fear your name, the small and the great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. It's very interesting. Initially it talks about two witnesses. Now it's talking about what? Bond servants. Similar thing we saw in Revelation 7. 144,000, great multitude. Revelation 5, slain lamb, the lion of the tribe of Judah. This is a thing that John is employing. He says one thing and then he amplifies it by giving it a very bigger meaning. Same thing. Two witnesses mentioned, but now he's talking about the bond servants. Who are these bond servants? All the saints of God. According to Revelation 7, everyone who has received the seal of the Lamb. Prophets, okay? Then, and the temple of God which is in heaven was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple. And there were flashes of lightning and sounds and peals of thunder and an earthquake and a great hailstorm. I think same ending was there in the sixth trumpet also, right? When that angel spoke up, there was in chapter 10 verse 3, when the angel spoke, there was 7 peals of thunder. So yes, the hard chapter to understand. Yes, any questions here? Yeah. Verse 6. Yeah, but then where do we see that? Is there any other mention that it's Elijah and Moses? There are so many incidents mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Revelation. Like, what is the conclusive evidence that it's Moses and Elijah? You have to read, if you have to make that conclusion, you have to read a lot. You have to put your idea a lot into that verses. Are they the only servants? Yeah. No way you can say like that. How can you say that? Your bond servants, the prophets and the saints, and those who fear your name, the small and the great. Was Moses small and Elijah the great? How can you make that conclusion? You can't. Because if you go with that conclusion, you are going to miss the point here. Because how can you say that these bond servants are just Moses and okay, let me give you another thing. Moses and Elijah were not the only ones who were called the servants of God. What about Job? He was called the servant of God. What about Abraham? He was called the servant of God. The term servant in the Old Testament is a very restricted identity. When God created Adam and Eve, they were created as servants of God. But then because of sin, people stopped being the servants of God. So in the Old Testament, servant of God is only given to a few people. Abraham, Job, Moses, Joshua. Come to the book of Joshua. First chapter says Joshua son of Nun, servant of Moses. Come to the last chapter after Joshua's life. He's an old man. He's led the people into the rest, promised rest. Joshua is called the servant of the Lord. David is called the servant of the Lord. So how can you say it's only Moses and Elijah? Sure, but how can you make that conclusion over here? Is there anywhere else in Revelation you can see that that's the conclusion? That is there any other evidence you can see? Now that's up to you. You can believe it, no matter. That is not going to. My answer is you can't make that conclusion. That's my final answer. You can't make that conclusion because you don't have any other evidence. Because if you make that evidence, the next question will come to you. Where else do you see it in Revelation? And how are you going to reconcile it with the bond servants? Because if you say Moses and Elijah, some people are saying Enoch, right? Because I have read all of that. Then how are you going to explain to the people who say it's Enoch? It's not about what he. It's not. Now, who is doing that? Let's read that section. They have power to shut up the sky. Who shut up the sky? Did Elijah shut up the sky or did God shut up the sky? No, I'm asking a question. Shutting up the sky. Who shut up the sky and caused the rain to not fall? So then how can you make it Elijah? Elijah was just a servant of God who was doing what God asked him to do. Yeah. What about, so that rain will not fall during the days of their prophecy. And they have power over the waters to turn them into blood. Okay. Moses stretched. But who was actually doing the work of the plagues? Who was sending the plagues to Egypt? So then why Moses and Elijah? Sure. Anyone can argue against you and say this is God's work. God used them as servants. Then, so to that argument, how are you going to explain that this is Moses and Elijah? It's about the witnesses, and witnesses are just servants of God. So the whole point is not about the witness in this chapter. The whole point is about the God who sends those witnesses. The whole point is about what these two witnesses are pointing to. Now that's the danger you are making. You are making a lot about the witnesses. This chapter is not about the witnesses actually. Because these witnesses are put to death. Because if it was for the witnesses, then the witnesses should be more mightier than this. But they are killed. Who raises them back to life? God. So how would you make that conclusion on? I think you should come out of that description mode. Come out of the description mode, because if you still hold on to the description mode, you will still think that it has to be Moses and Elijah, and you are reading into scripture. Because then you will have to describe who's this bond servants. Just like 144,000, if you say it's those 12 tribes, first of all, one tribe is missing, and that's what inaugurated eschatology people are believing. But dispensational people are believing that two witnesses. Even dispensational people are not sure who these people are. They're saying that two witnesses will come in the last day, during those 7 weeks of Great Tribulation. 7 years of Great Tribulation. Even dispensational, even the hardcore dispensational people are not agreeing that this is Moses and Elijah. They were taken into heaven without the human death, physical death. Moses died. Yes, that's what I've also heard. All my life, all my young childhood, this is what I've listened. That it's Moses. So, but my question is, from this text, how can you make that conclusion? So, bond servants. Now, inaugurated eschatology people have more proof for this, because they will take the bond servant thing and say, man, it's bond servants. Who are the bond servants? Only those two witnesses? So, Revelation has a feature. I've said this multiple times. It will mention something, but that something has a greater meaning. 144,000. Actually, take 140. It's a small number of people. If you look at the bond servants, it's not just two witnesses. It's a group. It's a large group of people. But see, you have to understand, Revelation is a book of symbolism. Now, why are symbols used? You go on the road. You go on the road. There is a speed bump. Just before the speed bump on the side, there will be a sign of the speed bump. Why is that used? So, to give an awareness and to give you a pictorial representation of what's coming up. You go from here, that railway gate is there. You will have the sign of the railway track. Why is that symbol given? To show something. In Revelation, the same function is happening, but each symbol has a greater meaning. You take 144,000. Great multitude that you cannot count. A lamb who is slain. But that lamb is called the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David. A lamb who is slain has the meaning of not just the lamb, slain lamb, but a ferocious, mighty lion. Root of David, what does that show? The eternal king who's going to come in the line of David. So, that is one feature that Revelation has. So, whether you go the dispensational route, you will say it's only two. You go the inaugurated eschatology way, you will conclude that it's not. Two is showing a great picture, and that picture is today's church. And the church that will continue. So, those are the two views. Now, you take whichever you want, but you should know that these are the two views. I am more inclined to take the inaugurated eschatology view, because that makes more sense as I read the whole book. That's for me, and that's after 15 years of ministry and going through these sections. Yeah, but see, even dispensationalists are not sure about the identity of these people. Transfiguration, right? Those three is that what you're talking about? Hmm. Hmm. And taken into heaven. Yeah. Yeah. Come, yeah. 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 See, explanation anybody can make. Anybody can make. But see, that's the thing. You have to explain 11 in the whole context of Revelation. And in the whole context of, that's why, if you are going to speculate and say who these two people are, you're going to get a lot of questions. At best, what is the best thing to do? Don't make any speculation. Just read it and say two witnesses. Sure, two witnesses. But what is the main point of that? It says two witnesses, but later it says many. Bond servants, small and great. What? Look at the description. The prophets and the saints and those who fear your name, the small and great, and to destroy those who destroy the earth. See? So yeah. That is how it is. That's why I'm telling you, don't make conclusions. Look at the main point. The main point over there is what? Judgment is coming on the people. One of the way judgment is coming on the people is God is sending witnesses to witness about Him, or in other words, to evangelize the lost world. And what is the world going to do with God's people? They're going to kill them. They're going to persecute. Whether it is two, whether it is multitude. The world is not going to spare them. But what is God going to do to them? Now that idea is more in line with what is going to happen with today's church and what is happening with today's church. Because the Lord has put us in this world as witnesses. Witnesses are not being treated well. Some of them will be killed. The world is mocking them. The world is laughing at them. When you go to North India, what is happening? Exact similar things are happening. When churches are attacked, when pastors are burnt, when pastors are put in prison, when church members are killed, what are the people doing there? Are they sitting there crying? They're rejoicing. So this exact picture is happening right now. So in one sense, I think we should be careful to say that, oh, this is not about today, it's about something that's going to happen. Because exact things are happening today. And will God raise His people? Even that is sure. So that's why I'm more inclined to that interpretation, because that makes more sense. I'm not against dispensational thinking. I was a dispensational once upon a time. But the more I read the Bible, I'm not seeing those things. I'm not able to recognize those connections. So yeah. Any other questions? That great city is mentioned as Jerusalem. Okay, it's very important to note that. And that is the city where the two martyrs are killed, and that's the city where the Lord was crucified. Same city. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions on chapter 11? Eh? See, I'm not saying that they are not Moses or anything, but it's hard to explain. It's hard, like you will have to do a lot of explanation to come up with that conclusion. Because if you look at Moses, if you look at the water turning into blood, the rain not happening for 3 years, right? During Elijah's time, 3 years, right? Witnesses are only servants. They are only doing what the Lord has commanded them to do. So each of the plague, when you look at the plagues, those plagues were not being sent by Moses. You look at Moses' life. When he was asked to go and save the people of Israel and bring them out, what was he saying? He was making excuses. He was making excuses, saying, "Why? I'm a man. I can't speak well. I'm a stammerer." So then, what did God say? I'll send Aaron with you. You do your work. Aaron will speak on your behalf. He'll be a spokesman. Now, such a person, he was so mighty. He was so strong, right? When two people are fighting, when an Israelite and a Egyptian person was fighting, they're fighting. He goes and slaps the Egyptian guy, killed. Gets his story is over. He buries him, and he goes as if nothing has happened. Next day, he goes out to walk. He sees two Israelites fighting. He goes, and one of them says, "Who are you? Who made you Lord over us? We saw yesterday you killed an Egyptian. Today you have come to kill us." Then what did he do? He ran away. Such a person God uses. God says, "Put your stick down." It becomes a snake. Pick it up. Who is doing it? Whose power is behind it? Lift your rod over the Nile River. Blood. Who's doing it? So we can't make much of Moses. We have to make much of the God of Moses. Come to Elijah. Mighty guy. After that incident of the Baal and the fire coming, that was his crowning glory moment. Right after that, Jezebel says, "Hunt all these people down. I want Elijah. I want all these servants of God. Yahweh, bring. I want to kill them." What does he do? He runs away. He runs away and he hides and he says, "What? I want to die. Man, yesterday you prayed and fire came down and you made a big statement about God. You killed all of these Baal." Like, did Elijah spare them? He went after them and killed all of them. And today he's saying, "Lord, I want to die." Right? What does the Lord do? God comes in earthquake, in fire, in wind, but in a shrill voice, sound. God speaks to him, says, "Get up, buddy, get up, friend, get up." Right? Sends crows. Not even man. Can you even imagine that? A weak person who was a champion yesterday, weak person today, hungry, wanting to die, God sends crows, ravens to feed him. And it says, after he ate that food, he got strength. And then God says, "Run." Then he says to God, "God, look at Elijah's understanding. He's in the wilderness, in a cave, Nobody is around. He doesn't even know what is going to happen. He's only heard that Jezebel is going after God's servants. He has already made the conclusion, what? I'm the only one. There's nobody else. There's nobody else who follows you. I am the only one. I'm just imagining first Elijah's foolishness. He doesn't know what's really happening. I was imagining how would God think about it when Elijah says, God, I'm the only one. What does God say? I have preserved 7,000. Not 7, not 70, not 700. How many? Wow. In other words, God, मलयालती पढ़ना नहीं अन्नाडा विचारिचे, right? तू क्या सोचा तूने? तू अकेला है? मैं तेरे जैसे 7,000 लोगों को मैंने रखा हुआ. So who is the real champion? Yeah. That's why you need to have a big view of God. Never read a story in the Bible and make much of the character. Yeah. I think that's one thing that so many preachers are making a mistake today. David is a good man. Okay, be like David. Elijah, mighty man. Be like Elijah. Moses, great guy. Be like Moses. Barnabas, good man. Be like Barnabas. No. No. All of those people are pointing to one person. Yesterday I heard a preaching about Barnabas. Nice, good preaching. Very, very good preaching. Loved it. But that man missed the point. He was preaching from Acts chapter 11 about Barnabas being sent to the church in Antioch. He's known as a big preacher among our circles, brethren circles. And he's among the one among the very few faithful preachers. And he's preaching. I was in the church. And he comes and preaches and he's really nice preaching. His whole point is this. Acts chapter 11, it says, the church in Jerusalem sent Barnabas to the church in Antioch, and Barnabas was a good man. So the point he wanted to make was, there is nobody else mentioned as good in the Bible, only Barnabas. Why is he good? And then he takes four characters about Barnabas. Barnabas is good because of this, because of this, because of this. But in that verse, 4 verse 13 or something, chapter 11 or something, this same verse, Barnabas is a good man, full of the Spirit and full of faith. And I'm sitting there waiting. God, the answer is there. Why is Barnabas a good man? Because he's full of the Spirit, he's full of faith. Who gives the Spirit? Who gives the faith? Yeah, we have to exercise faith, but who gives us the faith? This man did not explain that. You know what he said? In the end, he comes up and says, he had a lot of good things to say. Then in the end, he said, yes, it's mentioned full of Spirit and full of faith, but there are other people also who are full of Spirit and full of faith. They are not mentioned as good, but Barnabas is mentioned as good. I'm like, God, you missed the point. What is the point of the book of Acts? Chapter 1 says, Jesus tells to the disciples, what does he say? Wait in Jerusalem. Disciples are only concerned about what? Will you establish the physical kingdom in Jerusalem so that they can also sit as chief minister, deputy prime minister. They can sit with Jesus and rule over Romans and Roman people. Great. But they've seen Jesus doing all the mighty works. They've seen Jesus dead. They saw Jesus raised to life. But they're still thinking about the what? Physical kingdom. And Jesus says, that's none of your business. But wait in Jerusalem, you will receive what? Power, Spirit, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And the rest of the book of Acts is what? The Spirit coming, giving them power, and the gospel going from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria. By the time we come to the end chapter of last chapter of Acts, where has the gospel come to? Rome. Today, where has the gospel come to? So the question is, what is the point of chapter 11? The main point is what happens when somebody is filled with the Spirit. In chapter 5, persecution came to the church. First wave of persecution. What we are studying in Revelation is like so many years later this is happening. But the first wave of persecution, what did the believers do? Wherever they were spread. Now, we just read it, spread. But what does spread mean? Leave your house, leave your village, leave your things, leave your school, leave your seminary. You have to run for your life. And you go. You go to one place, he goes to another place, I go to another place. All of us running for life. And what do? We preach the gospel. How does that happen? The power of the Holy Spirit. So I'm sitting there, I'm praying, Lord, let this preacher explain that words. But he missed the point. And then he's telling the church, be like Barnabas. The question is, how can I be like Barnabas? How can I be good in my life? What do I need? Can I make goodness in my life? Can you produce goodness in your life? Who produces it for us, Joshua? And how does he produce it for us? He fills us. He's already given us the Spirit. He fills us with the Spirit. He gives us what? Greater faith. Faith in whom? Jesus. So, when you read a passage, don't miss the point. I just gave you a quick few minutes of hermeneutics. How does that work? Don't miss it. Okay? That's why I'm constantly saying, come back to the main point, come back to the main point, come back to the main point. So, many preachers are doing this today. And that's why what happens? People are, you know how people are leaving after the sermon? There are different categories of people. One set of people are like, yes, I will be good like Barnabas. Tomorrow I will read the Bible. I will do this. I will give more money to the church. But how long can we be doing that? Will that make us good? Then there is another set of people who go, Ayyo, yeah, Barnabas was good. But what can I do? So some people are leaving discouraged. Some people are leaving pumped up. But here's the thing, both the set of people will end up what? One set of people will start doing a lot of things. But then our efforts will not lead us to anywhere. We have to trust the Lord. Another set of people are discouraged. For them to be encouraged, what do they need? They need the strength from God. So when we preach from the Bible, when we preach about characters, don't make it much about yes, you explain the characters, you explain, you exposit, you point people to the Word of God, but always point people to the God of that character. The God of Moses, the God of Barnabas. And that's how you can point people to Jesus. Got it? Small crash course. Hermeneutics and preaching. These are things I learned in the last 5 years. That brings the Bible alive. Any other questions? You have any more questions? Noah? Questions? Luna? Libin? 666 ne kurichu question undo Libine? 666 ne kurichu question undo? See, 666 You know, we can take it literally or we can take it symbolically. But the whole point is this: God's people are given a seal, unbelievers are having their own seal. And when you study Revelation 7, 14, uh, 7, 13, 14, you study all of it. Actually, you study all of the 21 chapters. You will see what each seal will mean. So there's a greater meaning to the seal. But today, what's happening? People just get carried away by this thing. So recently there was this thing, the chip was being placed on. Do you want to stop it? You can stop it. The chip is being